She posted on Instagram. I finally upgraded my life chart increasing, right after leaving me for someone better. I stayed silent and focused on myself. Months later, she walked into my office for an interview and froze when she recognized me. I just think you deserve someone who matches where you currently are in life. That sentence hung in the air between us like smoke. She didn't say it with cruelty. She said it with this calm, almost rehearsed tone, like she'd practiced it in the mirror 3 times before walking into the room. And I remember thinking, matches where I currently am? Like I was a shirt she'd outgrown. Like I was an old model she was trading in for something with better features. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, standing there in the kitchen of the apartment we'd shared for 2 years, arms crossed, expression already halfway out the door. She wasn't asking for a response. She was announcing a decision. And I didn't realize it then, but that moment changed everything. Not just between us. Everything. I need you to understand what was at stake before I tell you the rest. Because it wasn't just a breakup. It wasn't just losing her. It was losing the version of myself that still believed things worked out for good people. At that point in my life, I was 27, working a mid-level position at a logistics consulting firm. Not broke, not rich. Just building. Quietly, steadily. The way you build something you actually care about. We'd been together for just under 3 years. 3 years of Sunday mornings, of shared grocery lists, of inside jokes that didn't translate to anyone else. 3 years of me thinking we were teammates. And what I didn't know, what I was about to find out, was that she'd been watching my progress like a scoreboard. And somewhere along the way, she decided I wasn't winning fast enough. If you enjoy real stories like this, subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for me. Her name was Brooke, and she was the kind of beautiful that made you feel lucky just to be in the same room as her. Not in an arrogant way, or at least, that's not how I saw her in the beginning. She had this energy that pulled people in. Warm, funny, sharp. The kind of person who remembers your coffee order and your mother's birthday and the name of your childhood dog. I fell for all of it. Hard. We met at a mutual friend's rooftop party in the city. She was wearing a yellow dress and arguing confidently about something I can't even remember now. But I remember thinking, whoever that is, I want to know her. 3 weeks later, we were officially together. And for the first year and a half, things were genuinely good. Not perfect, but real. And real always felt better to me than perfect. The cracks started showing around year 2. And I'm not going to pretend I didn't notice them. I noticed. I just convinced myself that every couple goes through phases. That friction is normal. That the hard seasons are what separate the real relationships from the disposable ones. She started making comments. Small ones. Subtle enough that if you called her out on them, she'd say you were being sensitive. Things like, my coworker's boyfriend just got promoted to VP. They're looking at houses now. Or, you're so smart, babe. I just wish you were a little more ambitious about showing it. Or the one that really stuck with me. I love you. I just don't know if love is always enough. That last one she said on a random Tuesday night. No context. No fight leading up to it. Just dropped it into a completely ordinary evening like a match near gasoline, and then walked away to go take a shower. I sat there on the couch for a long time after that, staring at the wall. Something in the back of my mind was whispering that I should pay attention, but I didn't listen to it. I told myself she was just stressed. I told myself she didn't mean it the way it sounded. I told myself a lot of things. A few months later, I noticed she'd started spending more time on her phone. Not in the suspicious, sneaky way you see in movies. In a different way. Like she was waiting for something. Like she was watching a world I wasn't part of yet. She'd started following people I didn't know. Commenting on posts from names that weren't in any conversation we'd ever had. I caught a name once, Carter Hollis. Just in passing. She mentioned him the way you mention a celebrity. With this slight brightness in her voice that she didn't even seem aware of. Carter from the Industry Mixer. He runs that consulting firm downtown. The one that was in Business Weekly last year. I nodded. I went back to what I was doing. But something filed itself away in the back of my mind that I wouldn't fully retrieve until later. The breakup came on a Wednesday evening. That detail is stupid and specific, but I remember it. Wednesday. Like she didn't even have the decency to ruin a weekend. She came home from some after-work thing she'd mentioned casually in a text earlier that day. Her energy was different. Lighter. Like she'd already exhaled some weight I didn't know she was carrying. She set her bag down, poured herself a glass of water, and then she turned around and looked at me with this expression that I can only describe as resolved. We need to talk. I put my laptop down. I think we've grown in different directions, she said. I asked her what she meant. I've been doing a lot of thinking about where I am, about where I want to be, and I think I need someone who's at a different place in life than where you are right now. I remember the stillness in the room. I remember the hum of the refrigerator. I remember thinking, is she breaking up with me because I'm not rich enough? But I didn't say that. I asked, calmly, if there was someone else. She paused. One beat too long. I've met someone who just understands my goals better. There it was. Not a denial. Not a no. Just a careful redirect dressed up in self-help language. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't beg. I just sat with it for a moment. Then I asked, is this what you actually want? And she said, it's what I need. I nodded slowly. I stood up. And I said the only thing I could think of, which was, okay. Then I won't stand in the way of what you need. She looked almost surprised that I didn't fight harder. Like she'd expected a scene and I wasn't giving her one. I wasn't going to. Not because I wasn't hurting, but because something deep in me already understood that you cannot beg someone into choosing you. And that if you have to fight for someone to stay, they were already gone. She moved out over the following weekend. I helped carry boxes. Not because it felt good, but because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. She thanked me. Said I was a good person. Said she hoped I understood. I said I did. I wasn't sure if that was a lie or not. The apartment was quiet in a way I hadn't heard in 3 years. Not peaceful quiet. Just empty quiet. The kind that has a weight to it. I ordered food that night from a place we used to love together. Sat at the kitchen table alone. Ate in silence. And somewhere in the middle of that meal, I made a decision. I didn't announce it out loud. There was no one to announce it to. I just decided, quietly, firmly, with the kind of clarity that only real pain can produce, that I was going to build something that no one could dismiss. Something undeniable. Not for her. For me. Because I was done being something that someone looked at and decided wasn't enough. 9 days later, she posted on Instagram. I wasn't stalking her profile. It came up through a mutual friend's story. A res hair. The post was a selfie of her and Carter Hollis at some rooftop restaurant. She was laughing. He had his arm around her. He was wearing a watch that probably cost more than my monthly rent at the time. The caption read, I finally upgraded my life chart increasing sparkles. Sometimes you just have to choose yourself and your growth. Grateful for this season. Upgraded. She used the word upgraded. About her life. Which, just 9 days ago, had included me. And that word, that one specific word, hit differently than I expected. Not because it broke me, but because it lit something. I remember reading it twice. Closing the app. Setting my phone face down on the desk, and sitting there in total silence for about 30 seconds. Then I opened my laptop, and I got back to work. I want to be honest with you about what the next few months looked like, because this is not one of those stories where the pain goes away clean and fast. It didn't. Some mornings I woke up and the first thing I felt was that dull, heavy ache that anyone who's ever been properly discarded knows too well. Some nights I'd catch myself rehearsing conversations with her in my head. Things I should have said. Things I wish I'd said. Things that wouldn't have changed anything, but felt important to say anyway. There were weekends where I genuinely didn't want to leave the apartment. I'm telling you this because I think it's important. I didn't become some machine who processed heartbreak efficiently and emerged perfect on the other side. I was a mess, quietly. I just had the good sense to channel the mess into something. I started waking up at 5:30 every morning. Not because some productivity guru told me to, but because the early morning was the only part of the day that felt entirely mine. No noise. No memories attached to specific hours. Just me, a cup of coffee, and the work I'd been too comfortable to take seriously before. I spent the first 2 hours every morning on projects outside my regular job. I'd been sitting on a proposal for a supply chain optimization model for almost a year. One of those ideas you have, feel good about, and then don't act on because the timing never feels exactly right. I started acting on it. I also picked back up on a professional certification I'd started and abandoned 18 months earlier. I signed up for a leadership development course my firm offered, but I'd always been too lazy to prioritize. I went back to the gym, not aggressively, just consistently, which, I've learned, matters more than intensity. I told 2 people what I was doing, my older brother and my friend Owen, who'd known me since college. Both of them just said good. No big pep talk. No dramatic support. Just good. That was enough. About 6 weeks in, I ran into a mutual friend of mine in Brooks. A guy named Miles who I'd always genuinely liked. We got coffee. He was awkward about it at first. You could tell he didn't know how much I knew or how I was feeling. I put him at ease. I was fine, I told him, genuinely moving on. He relaxed. And then, Because Miles has never been very good at withholding information, he told me a few things I hadn't asked about. Brooke and Carter were very official, he said. She'd been spending a lot of time in his social circle. A lot of events. A lot of photos. A lot of the kind of life that photographs well. He said it the way someone says something they think might hurt you, but they can't quite stop themselves from sharing. I just nodded. She seems happy, I said. Miles gave me a look I couldn't fully read. She seems busy, he said. There was a difference between those two things. But I didn't push it. I finished my coffee. We talked about other things. And on the drive home, I thought about that look on Miles's face. Something in it suggested that things in Brooke's new upgraded life weren't quite as frictionless as the Instagram posts made them look. But I tucked that thought away and let it go. It wasn't my business anymore. 3 months after the breakup, something shifted at work. My director, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Christine who had been running our division for 11 years, called me into her office. I assumed it was a routine check-in. It was not. She slid a folder across her desk. I've been watching you these last few months, she said. You've been different. More focused. The proposal you submitted for the optimization model, it's impressive. The kind of thinking we've been trying to inject into this department for 2 years. I remember the exact way the afternoon light was coming through the blinds in her office. We're restructuring, she said. And I want to talk to you about a new role. By the time I left that meeting, the conversation had gone somewhere I hadn't expected when I walked in. She was offering me a position as head of strategic operations for a brand new division they were building from the ground up. It was a significant jump. More responsibility. More visibility. More everything. I asked for 24 hours to think about it. She smiled like she already knew the answer. I said yes the next morning. The following weeks were a blur of transition and onboarding and learning what it actually meant to run something. I hired a small team. I set up systems. I started building the infrastructure of something that was genuinely mine to shape. And I want to tell you, because this matters, that the satisfaction of that process had nothing to do with Brooke. For the first few months after the breakup, I would have been lying if I said I wasn't partly motivated by the idea of proving something to her. That's human. That's honest. But somewhere along the line, that motivation shifted. The work became its own reason. The progress became its own reward. I stopped thinking about her caption. I stopped rehearsing conversations in my head. I stopped waking up with that heavy feeling. One morning I realized I hadn't thought about her in 4 days. That was when I knew I was actually okay. Not performing okay. Actually okay. 6 months after the breakup, we moved into a new office space. A proper floor with glass-walled conference rooms and a reception desk and the kind of layout that says, "This is a real operation, not a side project." Christine let me lead the design of the workspace. I built the kind of environment I always wanted to work in. Somewhere that felt like it took people seriously. I had a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. A good view of the city. A desk that I'd actually chosen myself instead of inherited from whoever used the space before. I remember standing in it the first morning, coffee in hand, looking out at the street below, feeling something I didn't quite have the word for. Not arrogance. Not superiority. Just solidness. Like I had finally stopped swaying. My assistant at the time, a sharp, incredibly organized guy named Caleb who I later promoted to operations coordinator, knocked on the door that first morning. "You've got a full slate this week," he said, "including interviews. We're starting to fill out the analyst positions." I nodded. "Let's start with those," I said. "Sure," he said. "First round kicks off Monday." He left. I turned back to the window. I had no idea what Monday was about to bring. The interview process for the analyst roles took about 2 weeks. We were looking for 3 candidates out of a pool of about 40 applicants. Caleb handled the scheduling and initial screening. I sat in on the second round interviews. The second Monday of the process, I got to the office around 8:15. Caleb had left a printed schedule on my desk. 6 interviews across the day. I picked it up, scanned the names, poured my coffee. I was barely paying attention. It was the 4th name on the list that made me stop. I looked at it again, and then I set the schedule down very carefully. Like it was something fragile. Like maybe if I set it down gently enough, the letters on the page would rearrange themselves into something else. They didn't. 4th slot. 2 in the afternoon. Brooke Callahan. I sat with that for a moment. A long moment. My coffee was getting cold. Caleb knocked and came in to confirm the morning schedule. He caught something in my expression. "Everything okay?" he asked. I looked up. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's fine. Let's run through the morning." And I went through the motions of the first 3 interviews with the same professionalism I always brought to them. But in the back of my mind, in a quiet, very still corner of my mind, there was something happening. Not anxiety, not excitement, not even anticipation. Just this profound, calm awareness that the next 2 hours were going to be something I would remember for the rest of my life. And I needed to decide, before she walked through that door, exactly who I was going to be in that room. Let me go back for just a second, because there's something I didn't tell you yet. Something I found out around the 4-month mark after the breakup. Owen, my friend who'd known me since college, had coffee with me one evening and, with the careful honesty that only a really good friend can deliver, told me something. He'd heard it through his girlfriend, who worked in the same general industry circle. Carter Hollis, the man Brooke had left me for. The man with the expensive watch and the rooftop restaurants and the business weekly feature. Apparently, Carter Hollis ran his business with a lot of flash and very little foundation. Owen put it diplomatically. From what I hear, the numbers don't match the lifestyle. He said Carter's firm had been propped up by a couple of early-stage investors who were already pulling back. The business weekly feature had been paid placement. The watch was leased. Not confirmed, but consistent whispers from multiple directions. I remember sitting with that information and making a deliberate choice not to do anything with it. Not to repeat it. Not to circulate it. Not to quietly hope it destroyed them. Because I didn't need it to. I had already decided I wasn't in that race. But I filed it away. And now, sitting in my office 7 months after the breakup, waiting for 2 o'clock to arrive, it surfaced. At 1:58, Caleb knocked. "Your 2 o'clock is here," he said. "Give me 2 minutes," I said. I stood up, straightened my jacket, looked out the window for exactly 1 breath. Then I sat back down, opened the folder in front of me, put on the same expression I'd worn for the 3 interviews before this. Professional, measured, present. "Send her in," I said. The door opened, and Brooke Callahan walked into my office. She was mid-step when she saw me, and I watched, in real time, the color leave her face. Not figuratively, literally. The warmth drained from her complexion so fast, it was almost medical. Her foot, which had been in the middle of a perfectly confident stride, faltered, just slightly. She caught herself, but not before I saw it. She was wearing a charcoal blazer and a white blouse. Professional, put together. She'd clearly dressed for this interview with every intention of making a strong first impression. She had a leather portfolio under her arm, a resume she'd clearly worked on. And then she walked in and found me on the other side of the desk. The silence lasted about 2 seconds, which, in that context, felt like an entire season. "Hi," she said. Her voice was controlled. Almost perfect. Almost. There was the faintest tremor underneath it. "Please sit down," I said. My voice was even. Not cold. Not warm. Just professional. Like she was the 4th interview of the day. Which she was. She sat. She placed her portfolio on the desk with hands that were just slightly less steady than usual. I glanced down at the resume in front of me. I'd looked at it before. I'd seen her name on the application 2 weeks ago when the pool came in. I'd flagged it for Caleb. Told him to keep it in the process. Don't remove it. Don't expedite it. Just keep it in the normal process. Let it move at its own pace. Because I didn't want to make a decision about her application before the interview. That felt wrong. That felt like something a smaller version of me would do. "So," I said, looking at the resume, "walk me through your background and what drew you to apply for this role." She stared at me for 1 more second, like she was still trying to process the reality of what she'd walked into. Then she swallowed, took a breath, and she answered. And I want to give her credit here. She answered well. Her background was solid. Her articulation was sharp. She clearly knew what she was talking about when it came to supply chain analytics. She'd done her research on the role. She gave specific, intelligent answers. If this had been a stranger sitting across from me, I would have been genuinely impressed. But she wasn't a stranger, and I noticed things that a stranger wouldn't notice. The way she avoided my eyes for the first 5 minutes, and then forced herself to maintain eye contact because she knew she was being evaluated. The way she laughed slightly too quickly at one of my neutral observations, as if trying to rebuild some warmth in the room. The way she kept her hands folded precisely in her lap, fingers interlaced, like she was holding herself together. About 15 minutes in, she paused after answering a question, and then she looked at me directly. "Can I ask, did you know it was me when you saw the application?" I held her gaze for a moment. "Yes," I said. "And you still," she started. "I keep every qualified candidate in the process," I said. "Your resume is strong. That's why you're here." She sat back. "Process that." "Okay," she said quietly. "Should we continue?" I asked. She nodded. We continued. 35 minutes later, the formal interview concluded. I closed the folder. "Thank you for coming in," I said. "Caleb will be in touch within the week about next steps." She nodded. She stood. She picked up her portfolio. Then she paused. I was already looking down at my notes, giving her the natural signal that the meeting was over. But she didn't leave. I looked up. She was standing there with this expression that I can only describe as reckoning. Like someone standing at the edge of something they're trying to decide whether to jump off. "Can I say something?" she asked. "You can," I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I didn't know you were here. I mean, I knew you'd switched roles, but I didn't know this was your office. Your name wasn't on the listing. I only saw the company name." I nodded. "I figured," I said. "I want you to know that she started." And then she stopped. Like whatever she'd been about to say dissolved before it could become words. I waited. I want you to know that I know this is strange," she finally said. "And I didn't come here to make things complicated for you." I looked at her for a long, quiet moment. "Brooke," I said, "this isn't complicated for me." And I meant it. She left. I sat back in my chair, looked at the ceiling for a while. Then I wrote my notes from the interview. Honest notes, based entirely on her qualifications and her performance in the room. Because that was the only way to do this that I could respect. That evening, Owen called. I told him what had happened. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "How do you feel?" I thought about it genuinely. "Settled," I said. "Settled," he repeated. "Yeah," I said. "Like something just finished, without needing a dramatic ending." He laughed a little. "Man," he said. "I know," I said. "But before I tell you what came next, I need to go back. Because there's a part of this story I've been holding for a reason. And it connects to the look on Miles's face when he told me she seemed busy instead of happy. About a month before the interview, I'd heard something through a completely unrelated professional contact. A woman named Renata, who worked in capital markets and occasionally crossed into the same professional circles I was now moving in. She mentioned Carter Hollis in passing. Not about Brooke, just about him. She said his firm had formally folded 2 months prior. Investors had pulled out. The operation had been quietly dismantled. Carter himself had apparently relocated to another city. I asked, as casually as I could, what prompted the move. She shrugged. From what I heard, he was more good at looking the part than playing it. I didn't ask anything further. I filed it. And now, thinking about Brooke sitting across from me in an interview for an analyst role, one of 3 she'd apparently applied for across the city that month, according to Caleb, who'd seen her application come in through a job board, it all clicked quietly into place. The upgrade hadn't upgraded. The season she'd been grateful for had apparently ended. And here she was, back in the professional reality of building something. Not on a rooftop, not in a caption, but in a gray office chair, across from someone she'd decided wasn't enough. I'm not going to pretend I felt nothing about that. I felt something, but it wasn't triumph. It wasn't satisfaction in the way you'd expect. It was more like clarity, like the world had just confirmed something quietly, that the things that photograph well and the things that last are very rarely the same thing. That the people who treat you like a stepping stone often find themselves, eventually, looking for a step. That staying silent and staying focused is a long game. But it's the right game. Caleb came to me 3 days later with the shortlist. He'd run the scoring across all 6 second-round interviews. He put 3 names forward, based on the rubric we'd built for the role. Brooke's name was on it. Second of 3. I looked at the scores. Her technical section was the highest of all 6 candidates. Her strategic thinking score was second. Her communication was strong. She'd done well. Genuinely well. Caleb raised an eyebrow. He knew enough about the situation to know that her name being on the short list was not simple. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I thought about it for 30 seconds. "Set up the 3rd-round panel," I said. "All 3 candidates. Christine leads it. I'll observe but not score." "You're removing yourself from the decision?" he asked. "It's the cleanest way to do it," I said. He nodded. He understood. The 3rd-round panel happened a week later. Christine ran it. 2 other senior team members sat in. I watched from the back of the room. I didn't speak. I didn't interfere. Brooke sat in front of the panel, and she was, I have to tell you, exceptional. She was sharper than I'd seen her in the 2nd round. Like she'd gone home after our interview and processed something and come back more focused, more intentional. The version of her in that panel room was the version I always suspected existed underneath all the noise. After all 3 candidates had come through, Christine pulled me aside. "Strong pool," she said. 2 of them are clear yes decisions. The 3rd is borderline. The technical is there, but the communication needs work. She wasn't talking about Brooke. And Callahan? I asked. Christine looked at me carefully. She's the top candidate, she said. She paused. I know there's a personal component here. I nodded. I want you to make the decision you'd make if I'd never mentioned it, I said. I already did, she said. Brooke got the offer. She accepted within 24 hours. She started 3 weeks later. On her first day, she appeared at my office door in the morning, knocked on the open frame. I was at my desk. I looked up. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, for being fair. I looked at her for a moment. You earned it, I said. That's what fair looks like. She nodded. She started to turn away, then stopped. I'm sorry, she said, quietly, without preamble, without build-up, no justification attached, no context softening. Just, I'm sorry. I looked at her. I know, I said. And then, because it was true, and because I'd had 7 months to get there, it's okay. She looked almost like she might say something else. Instead, she just nodded once and went to her desk. That was several months ago now. She's been on the team since then. She's good at her job. She keeps things professional. I keep things professional. There's no drama, no tension, no lingering anything. Just work, which is honestly the most peaceful outcome I could have hoped for. I want to tell you the part of this story that I think actually matters. Not the office, not the view from the window, not the moment she froze in the doorway. The part that matters is the Wednesday evening when she left, when the apartment went quiet, when I sat at the kitchen table and ate food from a place we used to love together and decided, without announcing it, that I was going to build something. Because that decision, made quietly and alone in a room that still smelled like her perfume, is what everything else came from. Not the anger, not the pride, not the need to win, the decision to build. There's something I've been thinking about lately. About that Instagram post. I finally upgraded my life chart increasing. I've thought about it a lot over these past months, and I've come to a conclusion that took me a while to arrive at. She wasn't wrong to want more. Nobody is wrong for wanting more. The mistake wasn't the wanting. The mistake was the measuring. Treating a person like a metric. Treating a relationship like a performance review. Looking at someone who was building, genuinely, quietly, in the way good things are built, and deciding that the current state of the construction meant the finished product wasn't worth waiting for. That's the mistake, not ambition, the measuring. And here's what I know about measuring. The things that win in a measurement contest are almost never the things that last. Carter Hollis won the measurement contest. The watch, the feature, the rooftop, the caption, and then the investors left, and the office closed, and he relocated to another city. And the woman he dazzled with his version of the upgraded life found herself on a job board, applying to positions because the season she'd been grateful for turned out to be very short. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because I think there's something genuinely important in the pattern. The people who build slow and steady and with real intention are not as photogenic as the people who build fast and flashy and for an audience. But they're the ones still standing when the audience leaves. I know who I am now in a way I didn't know before she left. I know what I'm capable of. I know that I don't need external validation to do the work. I know that the right people, the right partners, the right collaborators, the right friends, can see what you're building before it's finished. And if someone can't see it until the building has a corner office and a floor-to-ceiling view, that's fine. They can see it then, but they don't get the credit for the foundation. Owen took me out for dinner the night I found out I'd officially been named head of the division. We went to a good place, the kind with tablecloths and a proper wine list. We ordered too much food and talked about everything and nothing. At one point, he raised his glass. To the guy who didn't yell, he said. I laughed. To not yelling, I said. We drank. Seriously, though, he said, lowering his glass. I'm proud of you. Not because of the job, because of how you handled all of it. I thought about that. I almost didn't, I said honestly. There were about 3 moments where I wanted to say something. Post something. Make sure she saw that I was okay. But you didn't, he said. No, I said. I didn't. Why not, he asked. I thought about the real answer. Because anything I posted would have been for her, I said. And I was done doing things for her. Owen nodded slowly. That's the whole lesson right there, he said. I want to end this story with something I think about a lot. Something that doesn't get said enough in these kinds of stories. The silence I chose. The months of not posting, not reacting, not performing my comeback for an audience. Wasn't a strategy. People want to frame it that way. He stayed silent as a power move. It wasn't a power move. It was just the only genuine option. Because when you're actually doing the work, You don't have the bandwidth to also be narrating the work. The people who post about the grind are sometimes actually grinding. But the ones who disappear completely and then resurface as something new, those are the ones who weren't performing it. Those are the ones who were actually in it. So, she posted, "I finally upgraded my life," on Instagram. She meant it as a declaration of arrival. And in a way, she wasn't wrong. She had arrived somewhere. It just turned out to be somewhere temporary. A stage set that looked great for photos and dissolved when the real work was asked of it. Meanwhile, I didn't post anything. I just built. Month by month, decision by decision, early morning by early morning. And when she finally arrived at a place that was real and solid and genuinely built to last, it had my name on the door. And I didn't say a word about it. I didn't need to. The office said it for me.